I hate that.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the Rage. Hope you can hear me. I got my mask on. I'm afraid of the COVID. No, I actually have this mask on as an homage to one of our guests tonight who made me this mask and has been making masks all throughout the COVID crisis. But welcome. This is another episode of John Learns New Stuff. And we're calling this stream Women and Atheism Roundtable. And I'm joined by not just 5 of my favorite women atheists, but 5 of my favorite human beings, because to identify these folks just by their gender, that would be wrong. They're all fine folks. Some of them I know for a while. A couple of them I just met recently. Most recently, Granny, Godless Granny. I'll get that out. But we're going to have a discussion tonight and let you folks hear from Women and Atheism. And I'm here just to introduce it, and then I'm going to step backstage and leave the show to them. And I will come back at the end of the show, and maybe we'll take some questions from the audience. If you have any questions for the group or for any of the individuals on the panel, go ahead and tag me in the live chat, John Peterson. Make sure and spell my last name right, E-N instead of O-N, so that it'll show up red. And go ahead and you can start sending them anytime you want, and I will find them there because I'm going to be on mobile and in the chat under my John Peterson account. And so just to go right on down the line here and introduce everybody, I am joined by Faye the Most Gracious, who is my co-host on the Apostate Alliance on Sundays, 11 a.m. on this channel. She is an ex-Muslim activist, a humanitarian activist, and after a tweet I saw today, a great little dancer. Welcome, Faye.
I'm not responding to that. Can we move on?
Okay, that was such a cute tweet, though. And I'm also joined by my newest friend, Godless Granny. She's a YouTube creator. She has a very important voice in the community already. I've gone over there and watched a few of her videos and was very pleased with her content. She is, in addition to being a new member of the community because she's new to atheism, she was a Christian for 42 years. Welcome, Granny.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we're also joined by Kitty the Atheist, who made this wonderful mask for me that we showed you at the top of the show. And she's been spending months and months now helping to battle COVID by making masks for folks. Nonprofit. Somebody needs masks. She finds out how many they need and who they're for, whether they're for kids or adults. And all she asks is that folks pay the postage to get the masks to them. Welcome, Kitty.
Hi. I'm glad to be here.
And we're also joined today by Carrie Canna, I've known her for well over a year. Used to go to her streams that she had on YouTube. Carrie identifies as an anti-theist. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi. Thanks for having me, guys. I
Not a
bring the dark side.
And
I'm
last
dark
but not
side
least,
too.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you there. Last but not least, we are joined today by author Erin Lewis, and she has written, has 3 books out there. I put the link in the description for them. You can find them on Amazon. She wrote the book Dirty Money, Memoirs of a Stripper. So you want to be a stripper. And she also wrote Expose Yourself. And I think I saw here on Twitter not too long ago that she also has just submitted her first work of fiction for the publishers.
It's
whatever.
for basically an anthology, so a collection of supernatural and ghost stories. So that was interesting. And
Oh,
then
that's right. You're a former ghost buster, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah, I don't know if that's how I would describe it. It wasn't.
No,
It was
I
kind
know.
of just like a hobby, sort of a thing with my friend. I write about it a lot actually in my 3rd book, and basically debunk all my experiences. But at the time, they were nice and scary and that kind of stuff. And
Well,
then
I so deeply want to do that, but I don't believe in
it was honestly, it was more just about like freaking yourself out.
Yeah,
I did
I
actually
really enjoy
just.
that.
It was fun. There's a lot of cool places. I did actually just have an article come out in Free Thought Today, Freedom from Religion Foundation's newsletter. So that was a little more on the atheistic side. We'll see how fiction works out for me. So.
All right. As I said, this is the Women in Atheism Roundtable, and you're saying, John, why are you there? You're not a woman. And so I'm going to step backstage and throw it over to these fine ladies.
Before you go, John, I wanted to ask, is Kelly not joining us?
Kelly. Oh, no, I do apologize. Yes, I had also invited Topic Thunder, but she did DM me yesterday saying that it was a little too late for her.
Ah, okay.
She in the UK?
She's over where you're at, and what is it, 10 o'clock over there right now?
It is, yeah, it's about 10 o'clock.
Well, as a matter of fact, too, now that I think of it, Carrie used to live not too far from you. Over there
really?
in the UK, yeah.
This
Isn't that
is
right,
true.
Carrie? Yeah.
Whereabouts were you?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I was close to
I'm sure you
Manchester.
guys won't have any problems at all on your own. Faye will serve as moderator, though I can't see where you're going to need any moderation, and I will be back at the end of the show, ladies.
All right. Bye, John. So I don't think I've formally met any of you, and that's very exciting for me because I have been starved of any kind of social interaction in lockdown. So I did want to just like go around and like ask everybody to introduce themselves. So while it's well and good that John has introduced us for us, I think that when we introduce ourselves, it's a bit better. So it would be cool to have like go from Godless Granny and go around the room and just like tell us a little bit about yourselves, your history, and the things that you do now. So Godless Granny, I've seen you around on Twitter, and I recently followed you, but I don't think I've seen any of your streams, and we haven't interacted. So who are you and why Godless Granny?
Okay. I am, as John mentioned, fairly new to atheism. I've been an atheist for about a year now. And Godless Granny, part of it is because I like alliteration. And I was trying to think of something to put together that would be alliterative. And Godless Engineer lives in the same town as I do. And he's one of the first YouTubers that I met. And he is the first one that I met in person. In fact, I think he's still the only one that I've ever met in person. And so I was asking him about the possibility of becoming a content creator. And I didn't think I could do it as early as I did because I didn't know anything about it when I started. And if you watch my first video, you can see that I don't really know what I'm doing. But, it's got the content, but the technical quality of that first one is pretty poor. And one of the things that you can watch, if you watch all my videos in order, you'll see as I'm discovering new things that I'm able to figure out how to do with my editing software.
That's
And
great.
yeah, every time I figure out a new thing to do with the editing software, I find a way to put it into a video.
Well, you know what? As someone who is also quite a recent content creator, I can say that that's not a generational thing. Like I had the same problems, so you'll get there. I promise you, you will get there. And I'll be looking into that because that sounds it's. I think sometimes it's just funny to look back and see where we fuck up. But Erin, so the thing is, I love you. I've been following you for a long time. I've just never interacted with you because I like have this fear of like people not liking me. And I chose just the worst hairstyle to sit with today. But I've been following you for a really long time, and I deeply admire some of the stuff that you come out with. We were having a brief conversation about, I'm pretty sure that one of your books circulated around the Islamic school that I attended, and that I just find that deeply hysterical. But please do introduce yourself. Like, how long have you been doing this? Who are you? Why are you so amazing? How do I become like you? Please.
I don't know if you want to become like me, first off. I mean, well, I have been writing for, I guess, about 5 years now. I was a stripper or exotic dancer. Some people like that phrase a little better. It's a little more palatable, I guess, but stripper is really more accurate. And I started writing my memoirs because I really got a little irritated with the narrative about dancers in general, sex workers, and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, I'm just going to put this out into the ether in the Library of Congress, and I'm just going to piss on my little corner of the world here and leave something. And through that, I had already realized that I was an atheist, but I really pretty much kept it to myself. I wrote my second book in anticipation of quitting. So it was sort of like a series of essays on dancing and my thoughts on that. A lot of stuff about misogyny, rejection, things like that, and those things. But it's all humorous because, I mean, I got naked in front of strangers for a living, so I figure you're gonna have to laugh at it. What else are you gonna do? So, and then I became a part of the atheist community really through Freedom from Religion Foundation. Went to a convention, met my local chapter president, and that was how my third book came about, which is really about atheism, humanism. And I realized that because have already been used to being stigmatized and stereotyped, that I thought that I might be able to add a little bit of a voice or advocacy to atheism in general. Never really occurred to me at the time that women needed representation also. But apparently that's what I've added to also, maybe unintentionally. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to start getting into fiction writing. I've hooked up with some other independent writers, and that's a really fun crowd also. And I guess that's about it. I am dying to know if the copy that was circulating your school, though, was that in English? Was it bought through the UK?
It was in English, yeah. And I actually, you're like holding your books in your profile picture, right?
Yeah.
On Twitter. Yeah. It is that book. So that is the book that circulated around my school. And that's so fucking funny. Like I've been telling John and Nakasushi cannot talk, so this is my stage. I've been telling them for a long time that I think the old gods have returned because this year has been insane. I'm kidding. Anyways, Carrie, if I go clockwise, I'm really ashamed to say that I don't know anything about you. I don't even think I'm following you. And
that is perfectly fine. I've kind of pulled back into the shadows quite a bit because about a year ago, I got attacked on Twitter and everything was deleted, and it wasn't fun. So I'm not surprised. I don't know who any of you are, so I do not take it personally at all. So let's see, where should I begin? My name's Carrie. I live in Southern California. I'm an anti-theist and an atheist as well. I don't really believe that there is a God, but also at the same time, I believe that any kind of theism, any kind of indoctrination ideology that commands groupthink is harmful to the human experience. So it seems like everybody on all sides, they all love to come for the anti-theists. So it's just, when you do this, you have to have a bit of a thicker skin.
Yep.
And
Especially as women, I've found. I think especially as women.
yeah.
But I do
sure.
want to touch on anti-theism. Sorry, if I look distracted, it's because I'm taking notes. It's not because I'm not paying attention. So I'm
Right.
like trying to, because we don't have like a structured sort of discussion. I thought that it would be good to just pull some points. But thank you for introducing
Very
yourself.
studious. Very studious.
Well, I believe I may be the youngest person here, so I'm the most naive, and I have a lot to learn today. Kitty, Saint Kitty, the one who is protecting us from the COVID and doing a very charitable job of it. Please do introduce yourself, because I don't think I'm following you either, and I've never been exposed to you at all. So who are you? What do you do?
Okay, on Twitter, Kitty the Atheist. I've been kind of part of the community for several years now, going back to 2014, but I was mostly just consuming content. I started watching Godless Cranium and Godless Engineers videos, and that just dragged me in. And they're great. Like I adore them, but I am an atheist and an anti-theist. Well, I mean, honestly, Ocean made a really good point in one of his videos, Ocean Keltoy, where it's, his like idea of like the best anti-theism is more anti-dogmatism. So it's like, it's not that I hate religion and I feel like people are free to believe whatever they want, but their religion should end at the tip of their nose. And once they start trying to push their beliefs onto others, be it through legislation or, proselytizing, evangelism, that's what I have an issue with. Also, as Carrie said, the group think. And I mean, it literally comes down to people can be convinced to do things they wouldn't otherwise do when that kind of mentality exists. I mean, once you get somebody into fantastical thinking, then, there's not really a limit to what they will do, be it, bomb abortion clinics or fly into a tower full of people. I mean, it's sad and tragic. And, that is where my anti-theism lies, is stopping that. Like your average run-of-the-mill Christian, they're not hurting anybody. And I've got no problem with them. Same thing with, the, Muslims and Jews and everything, so long as it's just them. I started out as a Catholic. I was forced to go through confirmation by my mom, even though I had read the Bible at that point and realized that Christianity wasn't for me. Caused a little bit of conflict for a few years. I had actually done some looking into different religions, and I almost became a Buddhist because I liked that it was, focused on the self. And I still enjoy, that idea that, your spirituality should be about you and what you believe, not about, focus on yourself, not what your neighbor over there is doing, But I, being an angsty teen, found Wicca, and I was sold. So I was Wiccan pagan for many years. Believed in magic and spirits and, sage sticks to get rid of ghosts. I believed in all of it. And then I realized that I stopped believing in the magic. I stopped believing in gods. Like, no one convinced me. In fact, I was an atheist before I even knew what that was. I had joined an e-cigarette forum when I went to quit smoking and met up with some people. They talked politics, started talking to them. And one of them's like, oh, yeah, I'm an atheist. And I'm like, okay, let me go look that up because I don't know that word. And it's like, oh, shit, I'm an atheist. Okay.
Great.
So before this slips my mind, were all of you believers until you were adults?
Yes.
I stopped believing as like a preteen, like as far as Christianity, and then I was pagan until my early 20s, like 1920 is when I
Right.
when
Okay.
I stopped believing.
Okay. All right.
Mine is a little bit different because my parents were Catholic when I was very young, but they left the church when I was about 7. And so I was really raised for the most part with no religion, and I chose to become a Christian at 16. And then I was a Christian until just last year. So I left Christianity at 58.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic, but my parents and my brothers and sisters, I have 5 siblings because I was raised Catholic. And they had all pretty much, we didn't really go to church very often, holidays, grandma came into town, that kind of thing. And I started to suspect it was bullshit pretty early on. That's actually one of the articles I wrote for FFRF, was about how I found the contradictions in the Bible pretty early, especially when it came to like morals and ethics, because they didn't really align with what I was being taught. And then, like Kitty, I think I was about 15. I found a Wiccan book in a thrift store, and so I was Wiccan. I was a witch for, I don't know, about 8 months. And I was very disappointed when none of my enemies were vanquished and my spells didn't come true. And I was like, well, this is crap.
Oh,
and then
your poor little teenage heart.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I'm like, why, so, and then
it sounds like an interesting path to take, though, to go from Christianity to just witchhood.
I think that I was an atheist probably very, very early. I had a lot of doubts from the very beginning because nobody would ever answer my questions outright.
Yep.
I was a huge pain in the ass. I always asked the question.
That was me.
There was never the sky is blue. I want to know why the sky is blue. I want to know specifics. Why can't you tell me? And when you tell me it's just magic now, I think you're lying.
Pesky
God did it.
And I'm like, but God's kind of a dickhead. Have you seen the commercials with the kids with flies on their face? I'm like, God's an asshole. Like, if he exists, why are we worshiping him? And then the whole fear of God also was a big red flag to me. I'm like, I love my mom. I'm not afraid of her. Mom doesn't tell me she's gonna, punish me forever if I don't love her. And so for me, there was just a lot of, like I said, I was a major pain in the ass when I was a kid. And so, but atheists, that word was worse than the F word. That word,
oh my God, yes.
You're a Satanist. Yep. You're evil, you're eating babies. And until I actually looked up the word, and when I started to actually read about the science of consciousness and souls and afterlives and things like that, which actually happened, I think I was 25 or 26 when I had an 8-year-old nephew pass away. And that was when I started to read. When I got out of Stephen King and Dean Koontz for a minute, and I started to read. And that was when I started to read things on physics. Like I said, there's a book called The Science of the Soul. Mary Roach's Spook that's a great book if you haven't read it. She's hella funny. It's awesome. And then so I went into like Penn Jillette's God No, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, the Four Horsemen. I finally made it through there. And then I was like, well, holy fuck, I'm an atheist. And for a long time, I was afraid to actually say that until I was really confronted with religion invading my son's school, which is how I ended up becoming active in FFRF, is when religion really started to affect me adversely. So a lot of people that I've met in the community since kind of becoming involved, it's really opened my eyes to the experience of Muslims, to the experience of people that were raised evangelical. And
hello, that would be me.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have been really damaged and hurt by religion, and I don't fall into that category. Church was like, it was all the happy parts. As a Catholic, they don't teach you the icky parts. They only tell you how great everything is. I thought
it was the other way around. I thought Catholics were the sad, morbid ones.
Not in my experience. It was really like, it was kind of in the periphery. It was you know, when I was a little kid, I remember saying happy birthday Jesus on Christmas, you know, and Easter was about chocolate and Easter baskets.
I think they call that like culturally.
Yeah,
they call it culture.
But on the same token,
You
we would still go
Irish
to
or
church.
Italian?
I'm sorry?
Are you like Irish or Italian?
Irish.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. Just
so I was about 5 years old whenever it became clear to me. I was watching the adults around me talk about all these burning bushes and cramming animals onto a boat, and I'm like, Jesus, they're drunk. They have to be. But I was raised Southern Baptist in the deep South, so you can hear my accent.
Another thing I didn't know about, I didn't understand the experience really of, we had representations at the last FFRF convention I went to from the Black non-believers, and I didn't realize what a huge cultural difference there is in like the Baptist community and all that kind of stuff. I've learned like a ridiculous amount of other people's experiences, because for me it was like, well, this is really stupid. But if I kind of felt like everybody was just sort of, it was like Santa Claus. Everybody was like in on the joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just something we do. When I actually came out to my family as atheist, I was really blown away by the hostility that I got, because I was like, you can't really believe this. I'm like, you're going to church and you're drinking blood and you're eating flesh. Like, you don't see anything wrong with it.
I never quite understood that. But to answer your question, Carrie, like I'm a baby atheist, so I left religion in 2017, but I didn't come out as non-religious until 2018. So I'm very much a baby in this world. And I wasn't raised a fundamentalist, but I did fall into Islamic fundamentalism, and it slowly, little by little, turned my whole family into fundamentalists before it wasn't a fun time. But I think my experience with religion and my way out of it just wasn't a very scientific, like it was very emotionally driven. And I think that's why a lot of religious people have a problem with me, because that's their main argument, is because, oh, you left religion because you hate God. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Right. Well, you're gonna experience that a lot.
You know,
if I can make one recommendation, since you are a baby atheist, and also Godless Granny, you're a baby atheist too. So if you can stuff every bit of Christopher Hitchens content
I love
and his books into your head as thoroughly as you possibly can, especially when it comes to free speech and allowing people to believe what they want to believe. My neighbor just decided to start sawing stuff. Good God, really? Sorry. But that's the thing that running into new atheists or baby atheists. It's funny that you call it that, because that's what I call it. Running into
we call them baby Christians.
Yeah.
New Christians.
Oh, God. Yeah. They break my heart. It's like, no, don't do it.
If you think new Christians are bad, you should meet new Muslims. But to move this along just a little, I do want to cover the main topic of the conversation, which is broadly speaking, the misogyny in the skeptic community. And that's what I want to talk about. I do have a few other talking points that I've listed, but I want to cover that first and foremost before we dive into anything else. And I'm going to say my piece, and then everyone can sort of jump into the discussion. And being a baby atheist, the one thing that I was sort of in two minds about is actually identifying with atheism at all, because I just didn't like the term. And I think that the reason that I didn't like the term is that I always thought of atheists as really clinical, really scientific, which I'm just not a very scientific person. And it was also very male heavy and male dominated. And when women seem to be given voices, it's always about like women's issues. So for example, I've been brought onto hundreds at this point podcasts just talking about the hijab, and it's just like, you know, I have opinions on other things in Islam, you know. Do you mind
if I kind of interject something right there, since you brought it up before I forget it?
Sure.
You're going to run into that that kind of a feeling a lot, because when men talk to women who have come out of religion, they cannot understand the experience.
Oh no,
So
I understand that is something that I have to prepare for, but it's unfortunate, is what I'm saying.
It gets repetitive.
And I think
it gets really repetitive.
Like when we look at the domineering atheist figures, they're most of them are the ones that off the top of my head I can think of. Like when we think of Hitchens, when we think of Dawkins, well, they are great people. They're all men, and I do think that men have a very like all of the arguments are extremely like I think in a very different way because my experience is completely different. And the other thing is that the atheism narrative is also very like ex-Christian sort of narrative, so I don't relate to that at all because I wasn't a Christian before. I don't know how any of you guys believed in any of that, because it makes absolutely no sense to me, you know. Like my experience with religion is extremely emotional because it grabs you on every single emotional level. Like it knows how to play with fear, it knows how to play with love, it knows how to play with anger. Like something that I experienced while being a Muslim is this constant need to like fight something, you know, like there's this evil in the world and you have to make it better. The onus is on you. With Christians, while there is like the sense of that maybe in like the medieval times, that doesn't really exist from what I've seen. So I've never seen anybody talk about that from that perspective. And that's another thing is that people who come from liberal Muslim families, so if you weren't a fundamentalist before, do not relate to that. And this like lack of diversity in the community in terms of voices and in terms of voices in like all topics is really tragic in my opinion. So I've introduced the topic. Anyone who wants to comment, feel free.
Well, I've kind of been playing around on YouTube and on Twitter since about 2014. My old handle name was Mudpuddle. So I had the Islam discussion more times than I could possibly count because it reminded me a whole lot of the type of religion that I was brought up in. Everybody is an enemy unless they are the same as you. You have to get them over into your type of thinking or they're the enemy. The word atheist was worse than pedophile. I mean, it was some insane shit. So I identified closely with that. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can understand this religion. But what I noticed was women coming out of Islam are less likely to make a big deal about it because they're still terrified. So you're going to see less of your specific group in the bigger conversation just because it hasn't gotten there yet. Women are still terrified of being labeled as an apostate. They're still terrified of being pushed out by their family. I can tell you right now, I am an apostate. I have no contact with any of my blood family because they know my opinions on religion. So most women, they can't, because we care about our families. When we love somebody, we love them with our whole heart. And to have that little bit of a fear that's been indoctrinated into you just kind of peek its head out a little bit. Even if you mention like Erin, I believe that's your name, you were saying that you were considered a pain in the ass because you would ask the questions and all that.
I mean, among other reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it's like even if they show any sort of like little hint of dissension, it's going to get ugly for them real quick. So I don't want you to lose hope. There are plenty of women out there that have pretty close to the same story as you or the exact same story as you, and you will make contact with them. So don't lose hope, because I don't have very many female anti-theists that I can touch base with and relate to at all. So I mean, Kitty, you're the first one I've seen in a really long time. So this is fantastic. I'm glad that I was included in this conversation. So don't lose hope in it. But when it comes to the male aspect of this, men don't carry the same kind of rules that women do in society. Like we use shame tactics to kind of shut each other up or compete with each other. Men don't do that. So if they rib each other, or they get a bit louder with the way that they talk, or they talk over you, or they say something that's completely idiotic and then you point it out, and then they go in for a personal attack, you just kind of,
they just remain children, don't they?
They don't approach these kinds of conversations the same way that women will in a group. I mean, that's just the way it is. So maybe be a bit more forgiving for a moment until
I'm tired of forgiving men. We've been forgiving men throughout our whole lives.
Well, don't think of it as like a male versus a female type forgiving situation. Just forgive them for not being raised to have a polite conversation.
I think you have to have
blame their mothers.
But one thing that I have noticed when talking to men, like even within my own community, when I talk to, like when I'm in a group that's men, right? Because I was raised by men, and so I kind of understand the culture. And I was also raised by very, very misogynistic men, and sometimes that carries over even if you have, all the highbrow ideas. And even within my own community, if I'm in a group of men, I'm constantly talked over. And I think that there is a certain talent to be able to have your voice heard in that sort of environment. And what I found is the moment I lose interest, everyone wants my opinion. So
see, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you have to ask yourself, like, why are you finding value in them hearing you or them listening to you? Or
no, I just have an opinion and I'm loud. Like, that's it. Yeah, I understand.
I think the culture teaches men to be that way because, even when they are very young, when a boy is acting up, you say, oh, boys will be boys. But if a girl does the same thing, she's told to stop it. And girls are taught from a very young age to be more gracious and more, wait your turn.
And that's why I was rude.
Yeah.
For asking questions.
We're told to be submissive and obedient.
And
I act ladylike. Whereas the guys can have dick measuring contests.
Tell them to go fuck themselves. It's very simple. Just tell them to go fuck themselves. They'll make a weird face.
Yeah, that normally works. Also doing this works really well.
Just turn around and walk away. It's like, I don't notice that, you can see my profile picture. I'm a very tiny human being. I'm a very tiny human being, so I have to be careful with the way that I run my mouth because everyone is bigger than me. Children are bigger than me sometimes. So I have to be careful with the way that I run my mouth because people don't have any kind of buffer anymore. They'll just haul off and knock the shit out of you. So, especially when you're talking about politics and religion.
From the South, so that probably adds to it.
So if everybody knew how to have a civil, reasonable conversation, then this wouldn't even be an issue. But most people didn't take debate class in high school. They just did.
But I don't know. I don't think common courtesy isn't something that you learn in debate class. It's just something you learn from being beaten up repeatedly in school. I feel like,
baby. Wait, the real world is going to catch up with you real quick because there is not a lot of people out there that have common courtesy. There's just not.
Oh no, I know. I'm an ex-Muslim. I'm very aware.
Oh my God.
But what I was going to say is that this week, what I've noticed is that, and I'm not sure what triggered it, but there were quite a few times where sort of men from the skeptic community were really commenting on the way that I dress. And I was just kind of sitting there like, I don't know what this is, but I'm not having it. I don't know what it is about men and being uncomfortable with women's bodies and wanting us to be less free than them, or what it's about. I don't know if anybody can speak to that, but like it just feels like modesty. It's the same shit, right?
No, it's what it is most of the men in the atheist community, especially like the progressive atheist branch of the community, they are super nerds. They are unbelievably uncomfortable around the female species. That's all there is to it. So they don't know just yet. So you have to kind of lead them around by the nose.
They're adults. I don't believe in excusing them. Like they need to be
Well-
talked down to. That is so
well, then
disrespectful.
You've got to
You
choose
can't
higher
reward
brow people to talk to.
disrespect. No, I don't believe in higher ground. You can't reward disrespect.
No, definitely not. No, definitely
Yeah, I'm
not.
with Faye on this one. Whenever
Yeah.
they, disagree with us for whatever reason, they don't go after the argument. They go after the way we look, or they undermine us based on how we sound, or mannerism, literally everything but actually speaking to the core issue. And
it only gets worse as well. It only gets worse.
I do believe there's a comment in the live chat that goes, Carrie got that, killed him with kindness, sweetness. It's that beautiful southern like manners.
Yeah, you're not gonna ruffle
I
my
do not
feathers
have that.
and
I'm a London
yeah.
girl. I grew up on the streets. I do not have that.
Change your narrative. Seriously,
no,
change your
no,
narrative.
no.
Don't let people ruffle your feathers. Don't waste your
I
energy on
am
those
here
fools.
to
It's
fight.
not worth it.
No, you know what? The thing is, Carrie, like, the thing is, like, let me just explain myself. Let me defend myself here. The reason why, like, I definitely have my moments of understanding and patience, and I also have my moments of, like, fuck you, leave me alone. And I believe that if someone approaches you with genuine curiosity and genuine ignorance, then that is something that you treat with patience and conversation. But if someone approaches you with pure disrespect, assumptions, and things like that, because I get, for example, like my family want me dead, like my grandmother has said that if you were in Bangladesh, we would burn you alive. I get hate comments every single fucking day from all kinds of men. And I do not believe in being patient with people who just do not want to have a conversation. That is something that you should actively fight against. And I think that having a dual approach is really, really important. So while I do understand the whole kill 'em with kindness narrative, and I've dated many a man who is very ignorant and things like that, I can understand, sitting down, having a one-to-one conversation. And it's not just with like ignorant, atheists. It's also been with like really, really practicing Muslims. Like I've sat at a dinner table with one of those guys and had like a heart-to-heart and just tried to connect, But if it's just pure visceral disrespect, we cannot reward that, and I refuse to be patient with it.
Okay.
So
I totally respect that. Okay, so I didn't say take the higher ground. I said choose higher brow people to have these discussions with, and you'll have a different experience.
Sure.
I feel seriously, trust me.
I feel like we've been dominating the conversation, so let's let the others.
Yeah, we can shut up. Yeah.
So, as somebody who spent 20 years as an adult entertainer, I have a lot of experience with just men in general. And obviously, I put myself in a position to be objectified. That was kind of the whole point. And one thing that it took me a while to learn about not just men, but people in general, is that people are all individuals. So I really feel like whether it's the atheist community or whether it's the Christian community or whether it's dudes in a strip club, I really kind of react the way that they treat me. And if somebody comes at me with there's a lot of guys that I've met, on Twitter who have honest, genuine questions about what I did, and they try not to make assumptions, and they're curious, and they may say stupid shit, and they may say things that I find either offensive or insulting. But if I know that they're not meaning it that way, then we talk and we learn, and I learn about where they're coming from. And I'm like, what are you talking about, you dork? You never been to a strip club, and vice versa. And then they learn and they understand. And I really have, when it comes to like the atheist community, I haven't really felt like I haven't been listened to at all. In fact, actually kind of the opposite. And I've had a couple of comments where guys have been like, actually my own boss told me he's afraid of me, which is perfect. It's exactly where I want him. But, I don't know if it's just me personally, and people don't tend to really attack me. I mean, I've been called fat and ugly and old and all that kind of stuff. And generally those are I just view that as schoolyard attacks, as emotionally immature. They got nothing else. I'm not interested in litigating religion or necessarily the existence of God or anything like that. Because I really don't care. If it's not affecting me and it's not affecting other people and you're not hurting anybody, I really don't give a shit. But if somebody comes at me sideways, I'm going to react that way and put them in their place. But, you know, on the flip side of that, I really haven't had a lot of, you know, I've had very few instances where I felt like people were attacking me because I was a woman or because I came out as atheist. I've never really felt like I wasn't totally taken seriously, but somebody pointed out to me the other day that that may just be a product of my experience as a dancer, because, you know, I put up with a lot of shitheads all the time. That was part of my job. And what I do is I walk away. That's the end of it. It's over. And then I move on. But I really had to learn not to judge people via color, be it what they wear. I think I use in my book, I use an example of, I used to judge, somebody told me to check out customers with expensive shoes, right? So I basically judged and profiled men on their shoes. So if they came in a pair of dirty old Nikes, I would ignore them, right? And then I realized that the girl that told me that was going after every dude in the beat up Nikes and Converse and whatever. And I'm like, here I am going after, you know, the Gucci's. And I'm like, these guys aren't putting out. She did that to distract me and to basically, you know, lessen her competition. So, and that's the other thing, is that I've seen women be just as cruel and shitty to other women as I have men. So I kind of find, while there may not be as many prominent voices in atheism, women voices in atheism, I think that's something that we can very easily remedy simply by putting out there, excuse the pun, we need to put out. We need to put out more content. There needs to be more atheist authors. There needs to be more content creators, and we need to get out there with a big voice. And if they try to shut us up, we need to speak out louder until they stop looking at us as vaginas who are saying things they don't want to listen to.
I think sometimes our voices appear to be like these vehicles for them to sort of like make us to point and then move on, and it doesn't feel good. But you're right. I do think that women can be extremely cruel to one another. And I don't know how to fight that, because like the women in my own family are like that. You know, I couldn't even fix that among my own people, let alone the rest of the world. And I don't know how to build camaraderie between women. It could also be because I've got a lot of masculine energy for no reason. So I don't know.
One of the biggest things that I have found, you know, to be freeing from in atheism is being free of my husband's, being subservient to my husband. And that is something that came from the Christian community, but not directly from my husband. You know, my husband never told me, you will obey me, you will do what I say. But the church always told me that. And because the church told me that, I looked at life at, okay, you know, he is the head. I need to follow what he wants. I need to do what he wants. And I think that is part, you know, that could be part of why women are the way we are, is just, you know, maybe it's because we were always raised to view men as being something more important than ourselves. I don't know.
I was married once, and the person was an abusive monster. Away from there, and it's been many years, and, you know, I'm a lot better. But one thing, when I had opened up about the abuse I was suffering to somebody close to me who is an evangelical Christian, the response that I got was, well, if you were a better wife, then maybe he wouldn't abuse you. Yeah.
The onus is not on you to fix people.
No, it's not.
And I think that expectation exists even within, skeptic communities. You know, that there's this expectation that women, like, I understand where Carrie's coming from 100%. Like, I'm not knocking it. I understand that at some point you just have to compromise. But even like the narrative that we have to be patient with men is just very, you know, it makes me angry. I know I have to do it, but it makes me angry because it should not be our responsibility to make other people behave, you know?
No, when you bow down to somebody like that, be it a man or a woman or whoever, they're gonna take that as a reason to keep stepping on you. You have to stand up and not let that happen. I mean, my poor boss. He said something or asked me to do something, and I looked him straight in the face. I've been working for him for less than a year now, and I said no. And he started to actually like back out of the room. And that was it. I demanded respect and I got respect. And sometimes that has to happen. It may be that men are raised with the idea that women are supposed to be subservient, and that may just be a part of our culture that we need to start overcoming. But aside from that, sure that we're taking the initiative to speak up when something's wrong. And obviously in an abusive situation like that, I mean, what do you do when it's dangerous? My boss would never hit me. He's not going to fire me either. But you know, so that is obviously a we can't ignore the fact that I know, Carrie, you said you're small. I'm 5 foot myself, so I get that. And sometimes I feel like people view me as a chihuahua until I freaking come out with the Rottweiler, and they're like, "Oh, I was terribly mistaken."
It's this like weird Jekyll and Hyde dichotomy, and it's really weird because for the last me again speaking from like my baby atheist sort of perspective, like the last few months, quite a few people have described me as intimidating, and I have never seen myself as that. Like never. I'm 5'3", you know. I mean maybe it's the haircut. I don't know. But I never saw myself as intimidating. But I think because I'm quite unapologetic in what I think, and like after being sort of silenced for such a long time, I just like can't help myself. I have to say what I have to say.
Be careful not to project, though.
Yeah,
that's the one important thing, because then people will take it personally, and then they'll start to resent you because they're like, why are you treating me this way?
I didn't do anything. I always believe in letting people talk. You know, I think that everyone has the right to be heard.
Yes. Usually if you let people talk long enough, they'll hang themselves.
Exactly. And
so when it comes to me
with revenge.
Yes. Whenever I'm speaking to someone, let's say, what's his name? Adam Friended Forever or whatever he is. He likes to talk to me just to push my buttons. He asks me fully loaded questions. He's an atheist that promotes religion just to own the SJWs, and it really pisses me off. And he knows it pisses me off because he's not stupid. I mean, he is a highly intelligent individual, and oh my God, if he hears it, I'll never do it. So he's an OG commentator. He touches a lot on the socio-political type stuff. Anyway, he's highly intelligent, but he knows how to load a question so you're trapped. Whether you answer it or you don't answer it, you're completely trapped. So when it comes to me talking to these men, it's kind of a game. I see it as an intellectual exercise. Like, how far can I let this fool push me before I start to lose my patience? Because if I can keep my patience with a fool like that, people in real life don't stand a chance.
So I would like to move on to a different topic. Are there any final comments on this?
Well, I mean, what Carrie was saying about keeping your patience, like that's also a weapon in the arsenal, because the moment you get emotional, you're just an emotional woman, you know, maybe you're PMSing, you know,
exactly.
It's hormones, and it's just like hysteria.
It's like, okay, let me stab you in the neck.
My response to that is always, but am I wrong? Where is the lie? You know, it doesn't matter if I'm coming off as angry. If I'm right, I'm right. You know,
very good. That is the best response ever. Very good.
And even Southern people, like with the kill 'em with kindness, like I'll let you in on a little secret, Faye. When they say bless your heart, that's
fuck you. That's fuck you. That's fuck you.
Yeah, we don't do that in London.
It sounds all sweet and nice, but it's just like, nah, fuck you.
No. We don't mince our words here. We just say what we have to say and we move on with our lives.
It's like whenever you would say, Faye, it's like whenever you would say, "Oh, love." It's like whenever you would say, I was married to an English guy.
Love isn't
That's
sarcastic.
He used it that way.
Or maybe he was a dickhead, but love isn't sarcastic.
It's like, "Oh, love," and would tilt his head sideways, and I'm like, "What the fuck?"
But
yeah, bless your heart.
So the topic that I wanted to move on to is kind of related, but not really. But I did want to touch on sex work and skepticism. I think that sex work within the skeptic community is still looked at as unfavorable at best, and just don't do it at worst. I, for a long time, have been kind of running with the narrative that we should trophy individualism, trophy like people expressing themselves and looking how they want to look. And I think on the other side, like one of the reasons why I found atheism so clinical is that there seems to be this need to keep appearances of like very suave and very intelligent, like looking intelligent, not necessarily like being intelligent. How do you think we sort of balance that? Because I'm not a very, like, after being fully clothed for like 20 years, like I even covered my face. I don't want to wear fucking clothes all the time, you know? Like I wear shorts and crop tops a lot of the time, but I get in trouble for that. Like, oh, Faye, you look too provocative. Like no one's listening to what you're saying. Everybody's just staring at your tits. And it's just like, that's not up to me, is it? Like it doesn't matter what I put over these things. They're still tits, you know? So how do you respond to that? How do we fix that? If there is a fix for that, what do we do?
I can tell you what I did whenever people started running their mouth about some of the stuff I was doing online. I made a naked video and I put it online.
I can't do that. I'm a teacher.
See, okay. Well, you have to figure out how to respond to that the way that you're comfortable. I mean, if it bothers you that people say that, you got to stop listening to them because there's always going to be a critic.
Ignore it, but it's a narrative that doesn't seem to really die down. Like even within the skeptic community, where people have the freedom to exploitations and also have the freedom to speak, women are still like, there's still this modesty culture around women. Like, what the fuck is this? You know, like I didn't come here to be put in a hijab.
So are you dealing with a lot of Americans or a lot of English people?
It's a mixture of. It's a mixture of both. It's mainly men just being uncomfortable with the fact that I'm very blessed. Let's just say that.
Well, for me, it's not an issue because of my age. As soon as somebody hears granny, nobody's thinking sex.
Well, see, like I resent that because I feel like if you're feeling yourself, it doesn't really matter, you know. Like if you think that you look sexy and you want to look sexy in the video or whatever, I don't really care what anybody else has to say about that. You know,
when it comes down to it, I think that the best way to destigmatize it is to constantly harp on the fact that sex work is work, and we should be advocating for protections in place for them. So the porn industry, mandatory STD testings, have brothels where you have background checks on the johns, you know, keep the girls safe. And I mean, obviously, you know, decriminalize it. It is not something that we should be wasting resources going after. We should be spending resources instead on making sure the girls are safe and we don't have STDs being spread. If we use our voices for that, same thing.
Yeah.
The men too. We need to keep everybody safe from STDs, unplanned pregnancies, you know, make sure that they have everything they need for contraceptives and protection, and just speak about it. By not speaking enough, I think we do a disservice, because while we might see sex work as work, and while we might not have an issue with it, a lot of people still do, whether it's overt and they're going to stigmatize someone for it, or whether it's more, innate, where they can't really put their finger on it, but it's like icky or uncomfortable for them. The best way to get people to break out of that discomfort is exposure. I mean, literally, support, exotic dancers and prostitutes, and speak to representatives, like say, look, I know it's not the most popular topic, but it's something that should be addressed. It's an issue in our society that you have women being trafficked and abused, and it would cut down on trafficking too if you have safe legal outlets. I mean, prohibition made the mafia incredibly powerful because they were the ones with the alcohol, and it was a disaster for this country. And just how the war on drugs has basically made the cartels incredibly powerful. When you criminalize something, you create a black market for it, and then the people serving that need, because there's still a demand for it, they're going to go to the black market where there's no rules, no regulation, nothing there to protect the women and the men that are in this line of work. So, I mean, it's not going to be easy, but, like speaking out when we can. If we see someone being shamed for, doing sex work, come to their defense. It could be something as simple as that to get started.
So that will be one of the biggest attacks that I get if somebody goes to attack me, is they'll say, oh, well, you're just a stripper, you're just a hooker, or a slut. That's my favorite. I love being called a slut because I am by definition a slut. I dress provocatively. I don't anymore, but before I was, I used to sleep around. I definitely put myself out there sexually and all that kind of stuff. And actually with my book, my real intention was to draw people in with the provocative side of it, with the sexy side of it, and then introduce them sort of in a sneaky way to critical thinking, humanism, and those types of concepts. So like when I write about humanism, I talk about more than a pair of boobs, and I talk about how late at night, when we were getting ready to close, and we were the bars closed I'm in California, and so the bars closed at 2:00. But we were open until 3. We didn't have alcohol, so people would come in right there. That last hour, get a lot of drunk guys that would come in. I would be like ready to go home by then. I would usually start by like 9. So I would just walk around topless, probably no more stage shows. I would just walk around on the floor looking for lap dances topless. And what I started to notice was that guys would look me in the eyes when I was topless, not at my boobs. And I'm like, well, here I am. And so I started to kind of confront men on it. I'd be like, well, how come you're not looking at my boobs? I'm like, right here, and it would actually make them awkward to be confronted with that right out there, as opposed to like online, they can't wait to call me a slut because I have cleavage or because I showed my ass.
I think it's really easy for men to do that behind a screen, though.
I do, and I think that's the other thing, that as far as being attacked and people being criticized in arguments and called names and all that kind of stuff online, is I think it's just like my kid in 6th grade, where he's like, oh, well, they make fun of me for this, they make fun of me for that. Well, you know what? If it wasn't this or it wasn't that, it would be something else. Somebody's going to attack you when they're hiding behind an avatar. They just are. Yeah. They're not. The humanity is gone when you're on the internet. But for me, when
little kids are savages as well.
Oh, they are.
Well, of course. But you know what? I think that we've learned in the age of the internet, right, as that people, when they have that mask to hide behind, they're going to use it. They're going to use it to attack. And it doesn't matter whether you're atheist or Christians, or, I've poked Christians. I've poked, I've probably been inappropriate and antagonistic at some point. Of course, but I think when it comes to sexuality, for me personally, sure, go ahead. Take a look at my boobs. Compliment me on how I look. It's all fucking makeup and acrylic and all that shit anyway. But the thing is that once you can hook them with that, and then you can, I do think that there's a way around it so that they can actually see you as a person. And that was part of my little social experiment by walking around topless and actually starting to ask the guys, well, what do you think, as opposed to when I'm wearing a bra and then they're staring at my boobs. But when I'm totally topless, they're like making an effort to actually look me in the face, because they're confronted with it. Now it's in their face. They can't avoid it. It's right there. And I really felt like I was treated much more respectfully and much more as a human when I was completely naked than in an outfit or a top.
So I have a comment to add, just like a couple of things, and I also think that we should let Godless Granny talk about this as well. But I don't think that there is anything wrong for wanting people to appreciate your body. Like I think that a lot of the time, when men are being men, women will get defensive and be like, don't compliment my, like, I have no problem with it. It has a lot to do with the way that men talk sometimes, and it just seems very objectifying. But ultimately, I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting some attention for your body. And I personally have found, not full nudity, because again, I'm an educator. I will get fired if I put out a naked video. But like, I have found it extremely liberating becoming comfortable with nakedness. Like the first time, I've only been to a strip club once because they're quite expensive here in London. I don't have money as a student and as someone who works like a 9-to-5 minimum wage job. But I've been once, and I thought that it would be super awkward. But it was like the most comfortable that I've ever been, because everyone is just walking around naked. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like it's just naked people. There's just people in their natural skin, and it's just peaceful, and it made me want to be comfortable with my naked body as well. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that for whatever reason, because of religious conditioning or societal conditioning. And I, while I don't think I would say that I deeply respect sex work, I think that it deserves more respect than it currently gets. Like, we're all primates. We all love nakedness, and we make an effort to deny that regularly. And it's just the most unnatural thing to deny that you like nakedness.
But see, here's the thing.
We come into the world naked. Like,
the point that I always try to make is that if it wasn't wrong, if we weren't taught that nakedness was something taboo, or, something that we're supposed to make a big deal out of, I wouldn't have had a job for 20 years because nobody would have given a shit.
Yeah.
And I really think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that sometimes I make people uncomfortable with my comfortableness, or with sexuality and nudity and that kind of stuff. And that's why I actually take joy when somebody calls me a slut or a whore or hooker. And I'm like,
I'm trying to reclaim the word whore.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, to be honest, when it came to like my most lucrative customers, they're misogynists. They look down on me. And because I know that they want to think that I'm stupid, or they already have this low opinion of me, I could bleed them dry. Because they're like putty in my hands. I know exactly how to manipulate them, and I'll make sure that they leave empty-handed with blue balls.
So before we move on, I do want to let Godless Granny tap in.
Yeah.
Just because she hasn't had anything to say.
Well, I am asexual. And so my perspective on this is really very different from everyone else. And, I get what Erin is saying about being, comfortable with being able to expose yourself. But to me, there isn't the connect with the sexuality to the nakedness. And because of that disconnect, it really doesn't bother me. When men start talking dirty and stuff like that, it just doesn't really mean anything to me.
It is ew.
If it gets out of hand, I do have a superpower, and that is I frown at people. And when there's a few people that have seen the granny frown, and when I frown, people shut up.
That's great.
Nobody wants to like disappoint a grandma. It's like ingrained in us.
Oh.
Like mothers and grandmas, like there's that look that they get, and you're just like, oh shit, I'm sorry, mea culpa.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So just before we move on, Carrie has had to go because her battery is dying, but she says thank you for having her, and it's been great meeting her and having her opinions. It's also good to know that I do have a mentor out there to teach me how to be a better baby atheist.
Carrie seems great. I'm glad I got to talk to her.
Yeah. But I do, because I feel like Godless Granny hasn't had much to say, I do want to ask a question. I think more in the ballpark. Please don't be offended. I'm desperately trying to be my best. But I want to talk about atheism with age, because you said that you had been a Christian for a really long time and only left religion last year, right? So, like, I can't relate to that at all. So please tell us about that.
Okay. My views on religion have shifted from time to time. And well, first of all, you have to understand why I came into religion in the first place. And that is because I was suicidal. And I was feeling like life was completely meaningless and empty. And the only philosophy that I heard from other people that I knew that were mostly atheists, it seemed completely empty. And the people who were Christians were telling me that if I joined them, that their God would give me purpose and meaning in life. And that's why I became a Christian. And whenever I would have, major issues in life, like my first child was stillborn. And when I've gone through very difficult experiences, I have always clung to that Christianity as something that, okay, God still loves me. God still wants me to, follow his plan. And one day I'm going to be with him and things are going to be really great. But as I, went through life, I would find more and more things that just didn't quite meet up with the narrative that I'd always read in my Bible. And one thing you hear a lot of people say is that, people who read their Bibles are atheists. I knew my Bible inside out. I have taught the Bible. I have read the Bible cover to cover several times. I did daily Bible readings. I knew my Bible quite well. But I also, whenever I had a question about, why doesn't this seem to meet up with reality, people that I went to for answers always had some kind of answer. Well, for the most part. The one question I never really could get anyone to answer, though, was about the canon. And so the one doubt that always kind of nagged at me was, how do we really know this is the word of God? We put everything right into this. And another thing for me was my parents were not believers, and I always wanted to convince them to be believers. And so I kept looking for what is the perfect argument so that they will see that Christianity is true. And I knew I couldn't use the Bible as the support because they didn't believe in the Bible. And when you try to find support for Christianity outside the Bible, it isn't there. And that's what caused me to realize that Christianity is a house of cards that stands or falls with the Bible. And if the Bible isn't true, then Christianity isn't true. It's the only thing it's got to stand on. And so, as I would find things that weren't meeting up, I would just kind of shift my beliefs a little bit. And one of the biggest things that caused me to start turning was the election of President Trump. Because I saw more and more hatred and animosity coming from Christians who are supposed to be the ones that are, the loving and, we're the forgiving ones. And when I would hear hate speech coming from them, one of the things that I thought was really odd was Christians saying that they don't feel like they should have to be politically correct. And this is something I've even seen from Tommy Tuberville, who's currently running for Senate here in Alabama. Why should we have to be politically correct? And I'm thinking, if you're a Christian and you're showing love, you should be the first ones in line asking, how do I be politically correct so I can tell you about Christ without offending you in the process? And so that just brought more disconnect between what the Bible was telling me and what I was seeing as Christian behavior, until I got to the point where my theology shifted so much that I kind of became a religion of one. And that came about because I kept looking at the story of Paul in the book of Acts, where Christ appears to him personally. And if God really wants to save everyone, why doesn't he appear personally to everyone? Either he doesn't want to save everyone, or he can't. And the Calvinist point of view says specifically that God is not trying to save everyone, that there are certain people that were chosen before the foundation of the world, and these are the ones that are supposed to be saved.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was a Calvinist for some time, and part of the reason for that is that's the only way you can make God sovereign, is if you go to the Calvinist point of view. And but the Calvinist point of view leaves you with, well, why is God creating so many people that he's just planning to destroy? And so that's how I ended up in the religion of one, coming up with the idea that, well, I think God's going to save everybody.
That's very fanciful, I think.
Yeah.
But I find that story extremely relatable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I kind of had a similar journey, because I've had my own fair, definitely not losing children, stuff like that, but I lost my mother at a very young age. I had to raise my siblings. My father was a nutcase. I had a lot of struggles in my life, and I was relying on religion to sort of pull me through it. And it was really, really hard to let it go once I decided, I can't accept the fact that God's going to just burn a bunch of people that he supposedly loves. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I even if that God exists, I don't want to worship that, So
the final straw for me actually came through my youngest child. My youngest child was doing some work for school, because I sent all my kids to Christian schools, and was doing a paper on Noah's Ark, and said, Mom, Noah's Ark is impossible, because the methane gas that would have been produced by the animals would have killed them all. And
your child is so smart.
Yeah. And so I looked that up, and I said, yeah. All right, now here's where I have to be a little careful, because my youngest is transgender, and my youngest is Robin, and is he, but at the time was she. So if you hear me using different pronouns, it's because she was she, but he is he. And so then she showed me some other things that went along with the same lines, and then started showing me some YouTube videos. And once I watched Apologia, that was it. Christianity was over.
My mother had a similar view as a Catholic. Actually, very shortly before she passed, we had a conversation, and I told her that I was atheist, and she was actually, other than one of my sisters, was the only one who was really accepting of it. And she thought about it for a while. A little bit previously to that, I had brought my son up there. We used to help her kind of take care of her. I would clean her house and do some cooking and stuff for her to help her out. And she had chased my kid around with a bottle of holy water. And she wanted to just sprinkle it on him, because we didn't have him baptized. She wanted to just sprinkle it on him as an impromptu baptism. And she was sneaking around. She wasn't being weird or dumb at all. We never really talked a lot about religion. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, I said, why do you do that? I said, do you think that God would send him to hell? He's 4, because I didn't have him baptized. And she thought about it, and it took her 10 seconds. And she goes, no, I don't think that. And I said, well, then what are you doing? And she goes, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. And so later on, when I had a conversation about this atheist, and I said, Mom, I said, the Bible just has never made any sense. And she goes, I know. She goes, I thought that when I was a kid. And she went to Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through college, married at 17, had 6 kids, you know, all that stuff, was divorced right as I was born. And so she kind of left Catholicism, then came back, and she said, you know, I don't really know if there is a God, but I want to believe that there is because I want to go to heaven. And she said, the God that I believe in would not send you to hell. You're a good person. And that's actually what my last piece was about for FFRF, was about how people like you, Granny, would kind of morph their beliefs to bring in people. They couldn't handle the thought of the God that they loved hurting people that didn't believe that or think that way. And that was very much the way that my mom kind of morphed her beliefs, was to encompass. And I don't know if you guys have read Dan Barker's book. If you haven't, Godless, it's excellent. He signed it for me, and then my kids spilled soda on it.
Memories.
First ever signed book too. And but he talks about how he kind of made that slow transition where he just kind of started to accept more people and accept more people. And the more beliefs and people that he accepted, the kind of the bigger his God got, until it just went away altogether. And the religion just went away altogether, because I don't know if you've ever met him or heard him talk. He's just like I mean, maybe he's like a horrible person in private, but I've met him a couple of times, and he's just one of the nicest, most kindest, gentlest people I've ever met. And he just comes across that way, as somebody who doesn't want to hate and doesn't want to exclude. And he wasn't able to reconcile that part of who he is with what he was taught as a fundamentalist. And so his journey is very, very interesting to read. And I think I've heard that type of evolution, if you will, of people's religion as they start to encompass other people. And so my piece is a lot about really accepting people of other religions, but how you see that a lot of times it's not about the belief that makes the person, it's the person that makes the person. So they may believe weird shit, but in their head, they reconcile it to still be kind on the outside, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, for me,
If you have
like,
anything,
sorry.
go for it.
No,
go for it.
I mean, the concept of hell did always bother me, you know, that no matter what you did, infinite punishment for a finite crime seemed unreasonable. But it was actually the concept of heaven that really, you know, knocked me out of Christianity. And it's because I actually thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, if I go to heaven and my child or my sister, they're in hell, it wouldn't be paradise for me. I would either have to no, baby. Sorry.
She's so precious.
Go with Uncle Chris.
Oh no.
The mattress is gone for right now, baby. Please go. Give me one.
Does she cut out?
No, I just said give me a sec so I could tell him to
okay.
Go.
Sure.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, so he's on the autism spectrum and he doesn't like clothes. So anyways,
I can relate.
Yeah, so can I.
Yeah, all right. So it was the concept of heaven. Like if I'm in heaven and somebody that I love dearly is in hell, it wouldn't be paradise for me. And so in order for it to be paradise, it would have to be one of a few things. Either I don't know they're in hell, which, you know, you would think like you would have to know if they're not there with you. There would be a fake version of my loved one in heaven, and then it's some Matrix shit, and I'd much rather an ugly truth than a beautiful lie. Or you would have no memory of your life, and then what was the point of living it? So it seemed like an impossibility that there could be a paradise afterlife if it wasn't completely inclusive. And then you think about all the suffering in the world, and it's like if it's a truly loving, benevolent God, you wouldn't have bone cancer in children. You wouldn't have genetic disorders like Tay-Sachs, where a kid's going to suffer their whole life and die. I actually got into a discussion, an argument with my aunt, who is very religious. And she'd come up to me and said, so, you know, I wanted to bring you to my church, you know? And I was like, yeah, if you want, I'll go to church with you. I don't care, because she knows I'm an atheist. And she's like, yeah, because Jesus has so blessed my life, and I want that for you. And I'm like, okay, so why is it that you deserve to be blessed? I mean, what? And I explained, what about, like, the starving kids in Africa? And she's like, oh, well, suffering brings us closer to God. And I was like, okay, genetic conditions, a child with Tay-Sachs, they're going to suffer, and then they're going to die by like age 6. They don't have the comprehension to understand that it's bringing them closer to a God. She's like, well, then that would be to teach the parent a lesson. I was like, oh, so your loving and benevolent God would torture and murder a kid just so their parents may or may not learn a lesson and come closer to God? And she just kind of, like, her brain broke. Like, I literally watched her brain break for a second, because she just, like, stood there, like, mouth slack, like, she had no response. Yeah. She never did tell me when she wanted me to go with her to that service.
Okay, so this is a good segue into the next topic, and it will be the last topic before we start taking some questions, I think, if we have time. It's almost been 2 hours. It's been a wonderful discussion. I can't feel the time moving. But the last and final topic is just something I just have no input in, really, is skepticism and motherhood. So I think all 3 of you have children. And you guys are essentially raising the next generation of free thinkers and things like that. How do you do that? Because I'm fucking terrified of having kids.
Well,
truly.
For me, like, and I know, like, people might disagree, but I plan on raising my son and teaching him about all religions from a cultural and historical perspective. These people believe this, those people believe that, which, I mean, in my opinion, is the way that all kids, regardless of if they're a religious household or not, should be taught. Because preaching dogmatism to a child when they trust you implicitly, that, a parent is their child's whole world in their formative years. And if you're giving them, answers that they're not supposed to question, you're stifling them. And I feel that if they choose religion, later down the road when they're a teen or an adult, then okay, then it's their choice, that they were fully mentally and emotionally prepared for that. And they aren't saddled with the kind of baggage that you see a lot of people who come out of religion, religious trauma syndrome. Like, that it can do real damage. I mean, like, look at the documentary Jesus Camp if you need evidence of that. It's horrifying. And I mean, that's always been something that was important to me, is to make sure he understands that there are many different beliefs, and I'm not going to push atheism on him. I'm just going to teach him about everything. If he asks me, well, which religion is yours? I'll be like, I don't have one. I'm an atheist, and just leave it at that. Like, that's what I am. I don't believe there are any gods, but, and continue the religious studies. Okay, the Jews believe this, the Muslims believe this, and so on and so forth.
One of the most poignant questions I ever heard was in an episode of Star Trek, where they were explaining religion to this alien, and the alien said, oh, and what's your superstition?
I'm probably a bad atheist because I don't like Star Wars or Star Trek. I know, it's okay. I like Hawaiian pizza too. It's bad. My son,
Hawaiian pizza is awesome.
That's all I would eat when I was a kid. When I saw that on the internet, I was like, why are people throwing a tantrum? It's great.
I will DM you
white
the
people,
recipe. I make a pineapple teriyaki chicken pizza. So, like, you add a little bit of pineapple juice when you're making a teriyaki from scratch. Yeah. Marinate the chicken in it, drizzle a little bit on the pizza before you cook it, and toss some chunked up pineapple on there, and it's so good.
My son is 15, and his father was raised secular. So we just basically, we just let him go. There wasn't, as he started to get older. Actually, it was elementary school when he started to understand. Somebody had asked him about the Bible and God in like a woodshop class or something, and he said, well, the Bible isn't proof that God exists. And he had to actually be escorted out of class early with protection, and then proceeded to get bullied for the next 3 years at that school, which is, like I said, one of the reasons why I came. It was Mama Bear that brought out me talking about all this. So, you know, at that point, we kind of, he had a really bad view of Christianity because they treated him like shit. And he's like, but none of what they're saying makes any sense. And he's like, you know, you throw any type of logic at them and they get upset. He has read parts of the Bible, like when we've gone to a hotel, and he's like, well, this is silly. We've never told him one way or the other. He considers himself an agnostic. He's read, he was really interested in Norse mythology, so he read Neil Gaiman's book. Yeah, he loves to read, so he's read a lot of, he's read Moby Dick, for God's sakes. He's reading Isaac Asimov right now, the Foundation series. He does like Star Wars, by the way.
Most people do.
Dude, I saw him like in the 80s, man. I was like, this is stupid.
Star Wars is special because my first date was to go see when the first Star Wars came out. That was my first date.
My first date was the that movie with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston. Come on, what is it? That was terrible. We almost walked out. We would have had more fun.
I had my first date at like 20.
The Bodyguard, that's what it was. It was The Bodyguard.
I love that movie.
I think I was 15. But as far as like my kid goes, we've talked to him about forming his own beliefs and investigating his own stuff. And like I said, he considers himself agnostic. And we just kind of let him discover things on his own. I think our intention in raising him was more about teaching him how to think and how to make up his own opinions. And he definitely veers towards atheist, but we've discussed deism, that, you know, maybe there was some type of, you know, being that we don't understand, that maybe that's what kicked off the Big Bang, or maybe there is something that might have set stuff off and then just walked away. But maybe doesn't have any influence on, you know, Earth or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so that is his, you know, he's just really neutral. And then when I tried to explain Catholicism and how I was raised, he looked at me like I had three heads. He's like, how could you ever believe it?
That's awesome. Like, Scientology.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, I was like, I don't. Well, I actually recently did Chris Shelton's podcast, and so I learned about Scientology through him, which was really interesting.
It's so fascinating, right?
But it's the parallels between Catholicism and Scientology. I was like, they start you out with the little stuff, and then they don't get into the really weird shit until later, till they've already like hooked you, and then you're like, okay, now you're willing to go, just if I got you this far, you're gonna go this much farther. And that was kind of how I felt Catholicism was, is they start you out with God loves everybody, and then they're like, yeah, but he drowned the whole world.
There's a term in Arabic that we used to refer to as the term in Arabic is khutwa, or like small steps, and it's usually used to describe like how the devil gets you to like take little steps into evil. But it's the religion does the same thing, where they take like creeping little footsteps so that you get more and more attached to it. But yeah, that's really interesting. I think my main fear, because like I saw someone say in the comments as well, like, Faye, you don't have to have a kid. I know. But there is a desire in me to have a child, because I'm like a very natural teacher, and I enjoy educating, and also I just want someone to bear my nonsense sometimes, and a child is good for that.
Not once they become a teenager, trust me.
Oh, I love
it doesn't work that way.
Someone's going to take that out of context, but I work in a high school. I love working with teenagers. I think they're dramatic, and I love it. But my fear is like all the generational sort of abuse, and my experience might be different. So I was like questioning whether or not to ask this, but like, you know, I'm a first generation immigrant. My family and, you know, generations before, it's just been this chain of abuse, and how much of that do I carry? Like, I am afraid of the things that will just fly out of my face without even thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? And that fear really gets me, and it just makes me think like, oh, I don't want to bring a child, or like, you know, adopt a child that has to deal with that. Like, maybe the line should just end here. You know, I don't know.
I think if you want to have a kid, you should have a kid. And I think that you're already cognizant of some of that you have. So you're not going, and I think that fear is really not.
It's irrational to an extent, I think.
I was trying not to say that, but that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
actually, it's irrational.
But I don't. The very fact that you are cognizant and that you realize that, there were some things that I was taught that I was a kid that, that I wondered that if that might come into my parenting, and it really hasn't, because you're aware of it. You know that it's there, and if you really want a kid, you'll probably make an excellent parent, in my opinion,
I agree.
for an hour and a half.
You honestly seem very loving and nurturing, and I think you would make
Yeah.
a wonderful parent.
Yeah. The other thing is that the other thing is that I'm still living my childhood, because I don't remember a lot of mine. I'm guessing my brain has shut most of it out because it wasn't a lot of fun. But I'm still very much in touch with my inner child, and I do really try. Like, I only just learned how to climb a tree, and I can't stop climbing them now. And it's really bizarre for the people who live around me, because they're just like, "What is that girl doing climbing that tree again?" I'm exploring. I'm self-expressing. I have like little teenage moments. I had to deal with my first ever crush last year. It was fucking awful, because it just was never going to work out, and I was like, I hate this. How does anyone deal with this? Like, now I understand every single one of the kids in my school. Like, it makes so much sense. But like, my point is that if I'm just forever a child now, am I going to be able to raise a kid? I don't know. I think there's a lot of irrationality that goes into it.
When I had my first, my husband and I asked ourselves the same question, because we were going to the mall almost every day. We lived within walking distance of the mall, and we weren't going shopping. We would just go buy some popcorn and walk around and, basically acting like kids.
That's adorable.
And we said, how can we have a kid when we are kids ourselves? But we did. And, you grow with the child, and you will grow, and you'll become more mature as the child matures, and that's what you'll find in most of life, that as the demands come on you'll develop with them.
Do you know what my most childish trait is that I really, really enjoy annoying the fuck out of everyone who loves me.
Some kids might enjoy that. Like, my son loves to be tickled. Like, he will come up and just ask to be tickled until he's like laughing so hard he's crying. And my kid can be a little asshole sometimes, but he's not a little asshole, and I wouldn't change him a bit. But
my kid's got 40 pounds and like 6 inches on me, so I annoy him as much as humanly possible.
I mean, but I also, your job as a parent is to annoy your kid. Like,
I think I also enjoy being annoyed back as well. Like, there's a reciprocity that exists with it, because I think that's my love language.
Kids will annoy you.
I think that that's my love language, is just very mild irritation. It's just like, annoy the fuck out of people you love, have them annoyed, and everything's fine. I think it's like a security thing. I don't know. We're not going to get into my fucking mental issues. Anyways, we should get to some questions, because it's been almost 2 hours. So if John or
hello,
welcome back.
I was waiting for you to tell me when I was allowed back in, Faye. And I just want to say, Faye brought up, that she got over her first crush last year, and I just want everybody to know I let her down very easy.
First the John thing, and no, get out of this conversation. This is my domain.
So we do have some questions that have been piling up here since we started, and we're going to read those off to you as soon as I can find them here. I screenshot all of them. So the first question came back at the beginning from Agnostic Pagan Mom. When you guys were talking about the eating babies thing, and Agnostic Pagan Mom was a little incredulous. She said, I don't get how people think atheists really eat babies. I've never heard that till this year of it being a thing. not stupid jokes. People really believe that? She asks. I mean, do you think that there are actually people out there that say that actually believe it?
It's a meme.
I mean, it's a meme, but I do think that there are people that are so far gone in their religiosity that they actually believe it. I mean, it's in the same vein as the satanic panic of atheists and Satanists are going to kidnap your kids and torture them.
But
I saw an article by Jeff Charlotte. He's the author of The Family. I don't know if you saw that, but he went to a bunch of Trump rallies and he talked to somebody who was in the QAnon conspiracy thing, and that person was visibly shaken about the whole Pizzagate thing. She actually believed that the Democrats who were running the pedophile ring, I can't even say this the fucking straight face because it's so ridiculous, out of the pizza parlor's basement that didn't actually have a basement, that they were not only kidnapping kids to sexually abuse them, but to also eat them. So it sounded like the way he wrote it in the article that this person really literally, because she was like visibly shaken and crying and actually believed that kids were being kidnapped and actually eaten. So as ridiculous as it is, and I thought it was just a joke. I always thought it was something like, oh, I'm an atheist, I eat babies. I always thought of it as a joke. I think it's, given how much crap that people actually believe, I think it is possible that there are people out there that really do actually think that. Granny,
well, there's always one.
You heard of that?
There's always
one. Actually believing that?
I've seen some people say that, but I never thought anyone was actually serious. The people that come closest to being serious are the pro-lifers, because they say we want to kill the babies.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I always interpreted that is that, atheists are crazy, like they have no morality, so hypothetically they could eat babies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, fun fact, lullabies actually go back to the story of Lilith. And basically Lilith was Adam's first wife, made of the same dirt as Adam. She wanted equality and wanted to be on top during sex, didn't want to submit to Adam. So she was cast out and became the mother of monsters. And they would sing lullabies over their babies so that Lilith wouldn't come and take them away in the night. Because you're trying to keep Lilith away. With the lullabies. So like for a long time, people have thought that people that were different, people that were outspoken, went against the grain or against what was accepted societal norms, they've always had a stigma attached to them. I mean, with varying degrees of severity, but I mean, I'm guilty. Around Thanksgiving, I always share the, atheist Thanksgiving memes because I think it's funny, but I do know there are people that take it seriously, but they're the minority. Most people understand it's just a joke.
Well, and if anybody's interested, DM me. I've got a great recipe for baby kebabs.
I wonder if my pineapple teriyaki sauce would go good on it. Probably. Make it extra sweet.
So this next question is from Omaros Moon. She says, I may have missed it, but did you guys mention, I don't believe you did, so I'll just ask it this way. Who are some of your favorite female atheists of all time?
My two favorite would be Shannon Q and Jen from Jen's Little Corner. I have learned so much from Jen.
Can I state mine just very bluntly? If people aren't aware of her, I'm not going to give any description of her. She's just the best person alive. Mariam Namazi. We call her the mother of all ex-Muslims. She's my mom. That's all I'm saying. I love her, and she deeply loves me, and I really, really appreciate her.
Yeah, I don't know Mariam personally, but I've seen your interaction with her, and she seems like good people for sure.
Mm.
Is there anybody else want to comment on that question?
My first was the most hated woman in America, and that would be Madeline Murray O'Hare. And one of my other favorites, I guess, or two favorites would be Julia Sweeney. She was raised Catholic. She gave an excellent presentation at the FFRF convention, and then also Annie Laurie Gaylor. I've come to, like I said, I've been as involved as I can be with the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I have a lot of respect for them and what they do. And for her as being kind of a very polite, but takes no crap kind of a person. So I admire her a lot.
Nice. For me, I agree with Godless Granny on Shannon Q. She was one of the first ones I started watching. Also, KC, Godless Engineer's wife. She's phenomenal, a wonderful person. And Navardia, she
I
is
love
fantastic
Mara.
as well. And
Yeah.
Mara does amazing science videos, and she's quirky and funny, and her makeup's always on point. Makes me jealous, a little salty, but I adore them. Yeah, I think that's all of us, though. Yeah.
Well, and just to go back to what Aaron was saying, if you have never seen Julia Sweeney, former SNL cast member, do any of her talks, go on YouTube and look her up, man. She's phenomenal. I agree with Aaron on that. And of course, you can never go wrong with Shannon Q. I can tell you that. All right, next question here is from Slade Chimera. And this goes back to when you guys were talking about the sex workers and what have you. And Slade asks, when topless or showing cleavage, do you appreciate compliments from people, or would you rather men shut up about it?
I think it depends on context. What I've found is that some men have been very complimentary in, I don't want to say in a non-objectifying way, because I don't think no matter how you slice it, it's objectification. Your tits look good, but there's definitely a way of doing it. I think it depends on context, and if they're just being crass, if they're complimenting anything else. I think it depends.
When I do stuff like that, it's deliberately and attention seeking. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. But I wouldn't want to encourage that behavior en masse, because I understand that there's a lot of women that might not take it the way I do. I'm just have become kind of immune. There's a saying that says immune to compliments. And so that's kind of the thing. So when I do it, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So if I don't get attention, I'm like, what? Why are you looking at me?
I do think reading the room is very important.
Yeah. Context matters. Absolutely. I don't mind compliments usually. I mean, there are times that it might bother me, but it's one of those things. Like if I'm wearing a low-cut top, it's on display. I mean, that's one thing I don't understand about some women. They will wear this skimpiest little skirt and top. Everything's on display, and then they get super offended when somebody looks. It's like you're highlighting it. You're putting it on display. I mean, you can't stop people from looking. And then they'll be like, "Oh, but they're raping you with their eyes," and I'm like, "No, that's not a thing." If I'm with my kid and I dress fairly, I mean, just normally, and I'm out grocery shopping or something like that, and somebody does that, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But now it's not me you have to worry about. It's so.
At my age, everything is sagging, and so I am not proud of the way I look anymore. I mean, it bothers me. So if someone made a comment about my cleavage, I would assume that they are being facetious because I don't think it looks pretty.
Self-image does tie into that.
Self-image is really important.
And I think you would take a compliment better if you were more confident.
Yes. Yes.
So this next one's not a question. And I just want to say, when Erin said a moment ago that she does that on purpose, go look at her timeline and go and look for when she was modeling her COVID mask. She does that on purpose. That was a great day on Twitter. And so this one is more of a comment from the channel owner, Nakasuchi. Back when you folks were talking about, the double standard. And he says that there is a double standard. I was raised to conquest, plow the field, as my dad said. Never been called a slut or a whore for it. And, you know, I screenshot that comment because I have to agree with him. I mean, that's the way, you know, women, girls and boys can do the same behavior, but they're, you know, complimented on it as a boy and excoriated for it as a girl. I don't know if you guys have any.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, if you've had more than one or maybe two sexual partners and you have a vagina, then you are permanently labeled as easy or a slut or a whore. And it's not right, honestly. Like, there is nothing wrong with sex or sexuality or anything. I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, so to speak. If it's okay for a guy to go out and sow his wild oats, then why can't we?
Have you guys seen the meme where it's the piece of salmon that says this is a virgin and this is like first time and this is whatever, and there's a hole in it and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger?
We're still, I mean,
haven't
in
seen
my
the salmon.
timeline,
I've
it's
seen the
still
gum
people
and
trying
the
to compare women to lollipops. So
Yeah,
That's
that's what that reminds me of. It's just like, is that really what guys think? That it's there's like a finite amount, and then all of a sudden it's like doesn't like work anymore. I don't know.
I recently saw one with a banana, and it showed like, you know, a just right banana, then with a few brown spots and then a lot of brown spots, and it was targeted at men. And like,
That's what I was gonna say. I'd love to see the Converse one to the same
one about masturbation with a banana. I'll see if I can find it and I'll DM it to you.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
hilarious.
people are aware that we're not food, right?
Well,
Tell Ray Comfort.
A question for the room.
oh, aware that we're not food. I don't know. It's we
We keep
Apparently
getting
we eat
compared
babies.
to food.
I'm gonna take a quick second here to say, Faye, I absolutely love your hair and haircut. I could not pull
Thank
that
you.
off, but you look fucking fabulous.
Does it make it better that I did it myself?
Yes. Like that's incredibly impressive. Like,
Thank you.
yay.
Faye's
Yeah,
also been self-tattooing lately.
I've been doing self tattooing as well.
Actually, that does bring up one thing. I know we're doing questions that I wanted to ask. What about there is a double standard, I think, when it comes to women complimenting other women, where it ties into the, you know, objectifying and looking at your boobs. It's like, if a woman says, "Oh, your tits look great," or something like that, it doesn't come off the same way as a guy to a lot of people. And I want you guys' thoughts on that.
I think it goes back into purity culture and how women should be like modest. So if a guy's like doing that to you, then you have like this reputation of being a whore or whatever. I think with women, I mean, I'm bisexual, so I frequently objectify anybody and everybody.
I have the same problem. So,
but yeah. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know how to fix this, because this is like years and years of like societal and religious. It's generational, you know, like people have been brought up in a certain way in a certain society, taught like women's bodies are like in some way shameful and men can run around in Speedos and it's so cool. You know, I don't know. I think it's just like it's a social thing.
now, what if we are fixing it by simply talking about it?
I think we are.
I hope it helps.
I honestly, I think it does. I mean, look, we have different generations that are all moving forward and progressing the conversation. So yeah, I think it does. I think it does help. I think even if it's only incrementally, I think we're definitely helping.
When I was Faye's age, no one even talked about homosexuality. I mean, that was something you did not discuss.
It really
And
hits, because like in my little, sorry, I know I'm getting like emotional, because in my little group of like ex-Muslims, I'm the oldest, so I'm usually the one that's going like, when I was your age. So I just feel so
Back in my
validated.
day.
Sorry, go on.
It's okay. So I think that's something that you younger people are changing. And I think that, you know, in another generation that will become acceptable and normal.
Well, see, and I'm 40, and so I've already seen 41, almost 42, but this year is going to last like another 10 years. So I figure I'm going to have a little more time before my birthday.
This year doesn't fucking count.
Just forget
It
birthdays.
doesn't
They don't
count.
matter
Forget it.
anymore.
2020, we're just writing it off.
I grew up in Southern California, and even when I was a kid, homosexuality was like, oh, it was dirty, and it was like taboo and a big deal. And so was interracial marriage and dating.
Mm-hmm.
That was also a big thing. Like Webster was a big deal when I was a kid. The Cosbys was like supposed to show everybody that Black people were like normal, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, those were concepts that I watched changed. And that's like I said, I'm 40, so I've even seen that happen in my time. So yeah, I think we are changing it. Just the conversation is changing.
I mean, I definitely think like the communities that you guys grew up in is very different to mine, because like while you guys were like, oh, we didn't talk about gays, like we thought gays should be killed, so there's a lot more work to do where I'm from.
I think it was just spooky for me, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like that extreme.
It wasn't that extreme.
But the fact that we're all able to connect now, and we're all able to, like, for me to meet people like you, Faye, and hear your experiences, that is already changing my own perception, and my own perspective, and the way that I deal with other people in the world. The same way as when I watched the presentations at the first FFRF convention, I was blown away by there was an Indian speaker who was, I believe he was homosexual, and he's talking about people came in and attacked them with machetes. Holy shit. I was like, here I am whining that I had to be baptized and go to church twice a year. And so no, I think the fact that we're all able to connect, even if we're stuck at home, has already advanced the conversation. So I think we are actively changing the culture as we speak. It just maybe not seem like it because we're right in it at the moment. But I mean, Granny would be able to see farther and see the progression from your point of view.
Oh yeah.
I do want to say though that even if this makes no difference, there's very few ways that are better ways to spend my time. Like I've had a really good time.
Hey, hit me up if you ever want to chat, Faye. Like, I mean, I have being a stay-at-home mom, so I have plenty of free time where we can chit chat while I'm doing stuff around the house. I will keep you company.
And I believe, Kitty, you're in our Discord, aren't you?
Yes, I believe so.
Yep, the Apostle on Discord.
So, are there any more questions?
Oh yeah, there is. This question here I was going to read out, and because we had, as always on the Rage, we always get one or two Christian trolls in the live chat. But this person, Splitter Trace, had asked, how come these ladies don't talk about Judaism or the Bolshevik Revolution or Holodomor, which I don't even know what that is.
Because it wouldn't offend you.
I'm just going to answer that myself. It's because we
did. It would not offend you if we did. This is why we're doing this.
We had 4 ex-Christians and an ex-Muslim, so that's probably why they didn't talk about Judaism and other stuff like that.
Sense,
also, Christianity is absolutely ridiculous. Like, okay, can I just go off on Christianity for a second?
Go ahead.
You guys believe that God had a son and he put him on a cross to alleviate everybody's fucking sin. How does that make any sense? Okay?
It absolutely doesn't. It's nonsensical.
And then you eat his flesh and you drink his blood. Like,
it's even worse than how you describe it. Okay, it's that God made a son, which was him, and then sacrificed himself because
God impregnated a virgin. Put her through fucking hell. And then I've seen your priests drown babies. Like, what the fuck, guys?
I mean, I'm just gonna say, Mary getting pregnant out of wedlock, saying it was divine intervention, starting a whole religion, fucking saved her ass from stoning, but that shit's only gonna work once.
Yeah.
She had to watch her son die. He went through so much.
I mean, I could just see.
You know what? The other thing is, Jesus' superpower is that he can turn wine, like make water into wine, and he can like make fish last a really long time. What the fuck is that?
Oh, he
I
also
mean,
Moses
healed
could
the
part
blind.
the
imagine-
sea.
Can you just
Moses
imagine
could
Mary
part-
He
telling
brought someone back
Joseph?
from the dead. He brought Lazarus back from the dead.
Oh, I guess there is that.
Joseph notices Mary's pregnant, and I mean, can you just see that conversation? She's like, well, it was God. Yeah, God did it.
Well, I mean, in the Bible, that's exactly what happened, and Joseph didn't believe her, and then an angel had to come to Joseph and be like, "Look, homie, like, big man upstairs, like, it's all him doing. Like, you got to deal with it, bro. Like, sorry, shit luck."
If he was angry before, he's definitely angry now.
I was told that in that culture that a betrothal was essentially like a marriage, and usually the engaged couple lived together in the bride's home until the groom had finished getting his house ready. And so the bride being pregnant at the wedding was not at all uncommon, and actually it was supposed to be a sign that God had blessed the wedding or blessed the union. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told.
Well, and you gave me the perfect segue, Granny, to the next question here. Iron Charioteer asked the ladies what they think about the institution of marriage. Is it quote holy? And I think he was using that word. Like, is it important to you?
I am always down to throw a party.
Okay, so
that's it.
I got married once and never will again. Like, just fuck that noise. Like, honestly, it's a piece of paper that, granted, there's a legal document behind it, so you're tying yourself to somebody. And while in theory that doesn't sound bad and there are tax benefits to it, when it comes down to it, if things in the relationship sour, as they usually do, considering, over half of all marriages end in divorce, like, it is a long and complicated and expensive process to go through breaking everything up. And it's never going to be like fully, truly equitable. And it's literally not worth it for a piece of paper and a little bit of a tax credit. Like, to me, like, if you love somebody, you're in a committed relationship with somebody or somebodies, if you're poly, do you, like, enjoy it, love it, but don't worry about attaching a label to it or about getting a piece of paper that really, you're not going to be closer because you got married. You're not going to have a better relationship because you got married. It's literally just attaching a label.
I just want a dress and a party. I don't need a certificate. I just want a dress and a party.
I agree with the marriage as a legal construct. Relationships are each different. They constitute two different people, or however many people, or whatever it is. And the actual relationship and partnership is between those individuals, whether it be open, whether it be poly, whether it be whatever your particular dynamics are. The contract of marriage is, in my understanding, a complete legal document, and it can be a risk if you break up. Like you said, it gets really complicated and all that kind of stuff. But there are the legal benefits of when it comes to taxes and insurance and having a spouse during medical issues.
Medical issues, yeah,
and things like that. But other than that, that's it. There's God shouldn't be involved. The government is only involved as it constitutes their legal responsibilities when it comes to taxes and insurance and all that other shit. But yeah, no, relationships are about the individuals in it. I think when I write about it, I called it ghostly menage a trois, when people will put a divine spin or feel like there's an influence or something like that. And God shouldn't have anything to do with your relationship. There shouldn't be any outside influences. It should be between the people involved, and that's it. And that's how you define it, and that's the end of it. My opinion.
Godless Granny, I'm interested to hear what you think about what your opinion of marriage was when you were a Christian for 42 years and what you might think of it now.
Yeah, when I was a Christian, I considered it an absolute, what's a good word for it?
Must.
I considered it absolutely ironclad. that the divorce was absolutely out of the question. It was completely unthinkable because that would displease God, and displeasing God was something I absolutely would not do. And so regardless of how the marriage was, we would stick with it. My views on that obviously have changed, and I no longer think that, it is an absolute that you cannot leave a marriage. But I am married, and I have been married to the same man for 37 years. So I listen to a lot of what people say about relationships, and in some ways, I am very inexperienced when it comes to relationships because I've really only had one relationship in my life. And he is the only man that I have ever had sex with.
That's crazy.
I can't imagine only having had sex with one person, because what if they don't know how to satisfy you and they're not a good learner or don't listen? Then,
That's one of the reasons why I
vibrators are
start
for.
listening to the conversations and start wondering, am I missing something?
All right, so the channel owner Nakasuchi asks, do you guys ever experience sexual harassment when you're doing live streams?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not much of a
I haven't done
question.
many, so it hasn't happened to me yet. But when I get around to actually making more content, I have a feeling that it's definitely going to start.
Well, you just haven't been on one of Steve McRae's streams yet.
John, this is not the time for shade.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna pay a heavy price for that. But
I would never want to be community property. I'll just leave it at that.
But something that I found
Aaron
to
doesn't
be
know.
strange. I don't know if this is. I'm moving this away from the Steve McRae conversation. We're not doing this.
No, I know.
But what I found to be, I don't know if it's just me or if it's just like a phenomena that extends, is that I have people who like will harass me and then just like disappear. But then I have people who are like obsessed with me. Like obsessed. Like they show up to all of the streams and they just desperately want my attention in some way, shape, or form. And it's super uncomfortable. And I don't know what to do with it. Usually it's just trying my best to ignore them. But yeah, I don't know if that's exclusive to me, but I think that that's worse than sexual harassment, is when people become obsessed.
Well, and here's the thing. There's another question here that kind of relates to that. That's for the other three panelists besides Faye, because now I don't know how many of you, I know that Erin said that she pays attention to Faye's timeline and what have you, but I don't know whether the other two of you have. But if you have paid attention to Faye's timeline, you see that she is mercilessly attacked by Muslim men, talking about her looks and talking about her, in a sexual fashion and all that stuff. So Nakasuchi wanted to know, are Christian trolls as sexually reprehensible as some of the Islamic trolls that Faye encounters? Do you ex-Christians experience?
I don't get a lot of that kind of stuff at all, really. I mean, I don't even get any like DMs. I've literally had one dick pic in my whole forever, and I had to ask for it. So I don't get that, and I wonder if that's because I already put that out there. So it's like it's no fun to try to sexually harass me because I'm like, bring it, okay, great. But I personally haven't experienced that. I have gotten into some confrontations with atheists that are like, well, you should be ashamed of yourself and you shouldn't do that and you shouldn't do this. And they're like, I got in this long argument with somebody about marriage and how being a dancer was either like cheating or was it like it wasn't a respectable thing to do, and like we went back and forth, and I was like, but you don't understand, this is like free will. It's not like this is what I want to do, this is what I, you know what I'm saying, like this, that may be cool in your relationship. He's like, well, I would never go to a strip club because of my wife, and I'm like, but that's between you and your wife, and that's cool if that's how you feel, but you don't shit on other people because they're comfortable with it. I danced for plenty of married men, and no big deal, and all that stuff. And and he's like, how could that be okay? So that's the only the only stuff I've ever really gotten. But I wonder if maybe I don't get that type of harassment, because I'm already like,
why is it your fault if married men want you to dance?
Hell, I used to go to the strip club with my partner. Like,
and that's what I said. I was like, I danced for lots of couples.
One of the dancers was a good friend of ours, and like, she didn't have a car for a while, so I would go to, when she needed a ride home, I'd go by the club, come in, and I'd come in a couple hours before they closed, sit down, enjoy the show. I got, free drinks, but I only had one since I knew I was going to be driving. Enjoyed the show, and then when the club was closing, they would let me go back with the girls because, you get the girls out of the room, get all the guys out of the place, make sure they've left the parking lot, and then the girls are allowed to go outside. Like, they really took taking them, taking care of them.
Well, that's the norm. I've never worked at a club where I was allowed to walk out to my car by myself ever.
They were great about that.
It's not ever. So, but no, I can't say that I've ever been or at least I've ever felt sexually harassed. But I did have somebody say, well, maybe you just don't notice it because you're like immune to it. So that is another possibility I will throw out there, that maybe I have been sexually harassed on my
it's kind of like how I'm.
When I was younger, like I walked out on jobs because of sexual harassment. Like, I fucking wore a skirt to work one day, and the fucking manager tried to run his hand up my skirt, and I'm just like, no, I don't need this job. I'm out. Bye. And I left.
Worked at an auto parts store, and I would say I was probably sexually harassed there. People treated me like shit. Like shit. It was the worst job I ever had in my whole life for like 6 months. It was seriously the worst. People just talked to me like I was an idiot. All the time. Like, that's just how it was working as a woman in an auto parts store. It was really the worst thing ever. My phone is thrown out warning.
Okay, I just wanted to say something very quickly that's off topic, but I think I'm at the same level of desensitization to death threats as you are to sexual harassment.
That is horrible, though.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That literally hurts my fucking heart.
Yeah,
I literally have no fear for it. Like, I just see it, and it's just like.
Oh, and I can attest to that. When I first met Faye, I just was flabbergasted by the way people go out. I mean, and here just in the last week, there's been some person going at her on Twitter, a Muslim, and it was actually quite funny because he was saying how God wanted to pee on, Allah wants to pee on her.
It was weird.
And poop on her.
Wait.
Fetishes right there.
Right. And R. Kelly?
And then ex-Muslims are coming in and going, wait a minute, isn't what you're saying blasphemous? Like, you're blaspheming.
Can I read it? I want to read it.
Go ahead, read it.
Okay, so this guy, he DM'd me 100 times. I think he was just trying to get a rise, but I don't know. I don't know where he was going. So he started by saying, "Hi, are you against Islam? Faye, Allah fucked you in the ass. Allah will destroy our slut, you poor Bengali, go fucking country. Faye, Allah will pee on you. Allah will kiss your ass. Allah will lack your pussy."
I think I would want to respond and say, well, yeah, Allah can kiss my ass.
Right. So I put in that.
Satan does that thing with his tongue you like.
Well, and I put in that thread. I said, well, so apparently Allah is into golden shower, cunnilingus, and analingus. So, I mean, what the hell?
It's
I'll take 2 out of 3.
I will say that I don't get any of that. And I think part of it is because I'm still fairly small. I've got like 310 subs, so I don't get noticed a whole lot. But when I do get noticed by Christians, the worst thing they ever say is that I'm going to hell.
It's pretty much an empty threat, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, and I know I'm going to butcher this name, Tioga. had asked, wants to know from you folks, what is one piece or person or feminist or political ideology that you'd recommend? So I guess they're asking, someone who maybe, puts out a book or, has a talk out there or something.
Mariam Namazi. I'm telling you guys, she's the best at everything she does.
I'm going to tout one of the four horsemen and say Daniel Dennett.
Godless?
No, Dennett, the dude with the beard.
Oh yeah. No, I was saying, I was going to Granny and asking if she had anybody she wanted to recommend. I could see how that sounded like a question, like I was asking if that person was godless.
Oh gosh, there's so many. I watch and support so many. I would have to say my top favorites would be Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Ra, and Paula Gia.
Can't go wrong there. Heavy hitters. Kitty, are you still with us?
Yeah, sorry, I had to step away for just a moment.
What recommendations do you have as far as someone to, go watch or read their books? Or...
Seth Andrews is one that I'm a huge fan of, and gods, I love his voice. Like, he's just got one of those voices that just... Also, Godless Engineer, although his content isn't for everybody, like, he's got his particular quirky sense of humor. Not everyone, is for that, and that's okay. We all have different tastes. Navardia, Marrow is phenomenal. She does some funny stuff, lots of science educating. So those are three of my top channels or people that I really appreciate.
Well, and I'm just going to say that I just a week or so ago subbed to Godless Granny's channel, and I've slowly going through her videos. But what I've seen so far, I would recommend folks go over and watch Godless Granny's content.
Oh yes, definitely.
Thank you.
And then so let's see here. This might be the last one. Well, maybe second to last. Iron Charioteer had asked, have any of you on the panel been activists against other religions? And what aspects of those religions did you disagree with? Another one, like were any of the Christians, you ever speak out against any other religions? And, for Faye, have you ever spoke out about any other religion beside Islam?
I mean, every other religion. Here's the thing with me talking about other religions. I don't get how people can believe in them because Islam was always like the one that made sense. So to me, I don't know how to talk about them in a way that just won't make people angry because I don't get them. Like, I just don't understand them. So I'm not an anti-theist. I think that I don't like dogmatism and I don't like religious rules being implemented in politics, but I think that people should be able to entertain whatever delusions they want. That's their right. So no, I don't really talk about other religions because I know jack about them, honestly.
Right there.
Yeah, I kind of say I definitely say that in a couple of my videos that I feel about the same way about all religions, but Christianity is the one that I know, and so that's the one I address.
Well, and here's the thing: there's a lot of people that I've seen a lot of Christians go after atheists, in whatever particular country. Well, how come all you ever do is go after Christians? How come you're only ever, talking about Christianity?
Christians
well, because that's the main religion in our country. Just like if they would ask Faye, well, why are you going after Islam? That's the religion she came out of.
Christians are weird because they love me. They always subscribe to my channel, and then I'll talk shit about Jesus, and then they'll unsubscribe. So I don't know.
And they're fine with that because it's a competing religion. For me, I have spoken out against other religions, but I do tend to focus more on Christianity. But there are, as an anti-theist, it's that whole umbrella. So I feel I do speak about even the religions that I wasn't a part of, but not to the same extent, because again, it's, you know, the devil you know, and that's what you're more comfortable speaking on. But I mean, for the most part, when I'm speaking out against religion, I'm speaking out against dogmatic, you know, groupthink, things that aren't necessarily, you know, they're not unique to religion, but they are prevalent in religion. I mean, it's when they start drinking the Kool-Aid kind of thing. I will speak out about that because it's an issue and it leads to some horrible, tragic things. Be it, you know, a mother like praying a sickness away from their kid and watching their kid suffer and die because of faith healing, or in other unexpected ways where you had a 12-year-old girl, I believe it was in Europe. She was 12 years old and her father had died, and her mother, you know, had her so convinced that she would be with her daddy when she got to heaven that she committed suicide so she could be with her dad.
Oh, wow.
That should never fucking happen, which is why I speak out about these things, not as much online, but, you know, in everyday life. I talk to people, I engage with them, I try to understand their beliefs and not so much change their mind, but present them an alternative where it's like, okay, you believe that, so let's, you know, work it through a little bit. Like, I'm not really skilled in like epistemology, more just having a conversation. It's not about trying to change their mind, but trying to kind of pick apart their beliefs a little bit and getting them to really think about it, like I did with my aunt, where she just, I mean, her brain just broke and then she just like deleted it from her head. So it's kind of a waste of effort, you know. And then I got my parents like in the next room, and my mom's like, "Oh, she's talking about religion," and my dad's like, "Hey, she brought it up. Kitty didn't do it. Like, your sister brought this on herself." So my dad was chuckling. Like, he's a deist. Like, he believes in a God and that he has a personal relationship with that God, but he doesn't believe in any religions. Raised Catholic, but he's just, you know, I know God, I talk to God, all the religions are bullshit. He'll walk into a church, God doesn't live here, kind of thing. And my mom went from Catholic to basically a Baptist type, not quite as extreme as Southern Baptist, but still under the Baptist umbrella. And whenever atheism or religion or even politics comes up, she's just like fingers in the ears, la la la, can't hear you. Which I don't understand. Like, people, like, it seems
It's
to me that the
because
people that
they're
have the shakiest beliefs are the ones that don't want to hear anything opposing because they're afraid that you're going to
it's
change
because
their
they don't
mind.
have conviction. I think something that I prided myself on while I was a fundamentalist is that I'll hear everyone out. I'll hear everyone out. My religion, I believe in my religion, therefore I'll hear everybody out. But I think people who don't have true conviction are the only kinds of people who will shut their ears.
Makes sense.
So we have one last question here, and it's actually a good one to end on because this was so fabulous. I think we're going to do this again, and there's a lot of women in the atheist community that I think people need to hear from. So we'll, you know, put together panels in the future and maybe do this like once a month or something, and hopefully at some time in the future have each one of these fabulous folks back on. But Slade Shamira had asked, what subject would you like to talk about that isn't, you know, like Faye had referred to before, the expected discussion on hijab or other sex-related subjects?
Literally everything else.
Okay.
Literally.
For me, it's science denialism, and especially the anti-vax and anti-climate change movements, and also politics, because everything ties back to politics. And one thing I'm so thankful for in this digital age where we can reach out and, you know, communicate with people is here in America. I think one of the reasons why the younger generations are so liberal is because they see that we're kind of getting shafted in the US. Every other developed country has some form of single payer healthcare. It's guaranteed as a right. We're supposed to be the wealthiest, best country in the world, but we don't have that. And we can go to someone in Canada or someone in the UK or anywhere else and be like, okay, so, you know, do you have death panels? Like, no? Okay. Whereas, you know, they use that scare tactic, oh, death panels. But then if you think about it, we have those here where you have insurance companies that will say, oh, you've got skin cancer. Well, I see you had acne when you were 16. So we're going to call it a pre-existing condition. We're not covering your cancer treatments. That actually happened here in the United States. And
yeah, you guys have a fucked up country.
I mean, there are certain things that should not have a profit motive. And one of the main things is human lives, be it private prisons or, you know, healthcare. I mean, it literally, it's like back when we used to have for-profit fire departments. They would literally let your house burn down if you didn't pay the extortion payment to them. And they'd show up and they'd be there and watch the house burn just in case they went to burn one of the houses where they actually paid. Now, it's not like that anymore. Now, fire departments are publicly funded.
No, but that's crazy, though. Like, you guys monetized 2 out of 3 emergency services.
I mean, it's pretty gross. Like, the Overton window has shifted so far to the right in this country, and the Democrats are kind of spineless jackasses. You know, no pun intended. Even though the donkey is their mascot.
Yeah.
Because when the right started shifting away from like Goldwater and Reagan type Republicans, they started going further to the right, further towards fascism and extremism with things like the Tea Party and the Freedom Caucus. And rather than like staying firm where they were, just slightly, you know, left of center, the Democrats ran to the right to try to catch up. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll get conservative voters if we act more conservative. It's like, you're a fucking dumbass. Why would someone vote for Republican light, you know, the Democrat trying to be conservative, when they could just vote for the fucking Republican? I mean, and things are starting to change, you know, and while I don't agree with her on everything, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we've got Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Like, we're getting not only progressives in places of power, which we need to drag the Democratic Party back to the left, but we're also getting women in places of power, women of color in places of power, which I think is incredibly important. Like, not because, you know, oh, they shouldn't be elected just because of their identity, but they have the right policies and, you know, it's more representation for more people. And even voting in this country is kind of ridiculous when you think about gerrymandering. They will draw districts in weird shapes so that even though you look at the popular vote and it's 50-50, where you would think, oh, 20 seats, 50-50, they each get 10. That's not it. The way they draw the districts, they disperse all of the liberals into heavy conservative districts, limiting their voice, limiting their vote, and then you'll get 18 Republican seats and 2 Democratic seats, even though the popular vote was 50-50.
Yeah, and that's something we can definitely do, is have a panel on and let you guys talk about politics.
I would love that.
I know Nakasuchi's really big into the politics. So now is the time in the show when everybody gets to shill. So we'll start with Aaron. Do you have anything coming up you want folks to know about? Or
well, actually, on the last question, I'm doing a presentation. Well, no, it ties into that, and I got like 6% left, so I'm about to die. I am doing an online presentation on how to debunk the world later in September. Obviously, you'll see me tweet about it. It's for the Global Center for Religious Research. Jenna Belk is doing it. Aaron Raw is doing a presentation also. So one thing that I would like to talk about is like conspiratorial theories. I'm absolutely just immersed in all the conspiracies that are going on right now, be it COVID, be it political, be it all that stuff. So that's something that's really interests me. Obviously, all my books are on Amazon and Audible. And you can get signed copies through my website at aaronlewis.com. Don't spell it wrong or you'll get the guy from Stained. Yeah, I think that's about it.
And I will get that website in the description too. I forgot about that. Godless Granny, what do you have coming up you want folks to know about?
Okay, I do a stream every Tuesday at 7:30 Central Time. This last week we did a stream on the Senate race in Alabama, and it was me and Godless Engineer, because Godless Engineer is here in Alabama. it was one of the best streams I've ever had. He was, very well informed. It was really good. I haven't decided on the topic for the stream coming up on Tuesday. I usually decide sometime over the weekend and then throw up a link and start asking some people into it. So I'm still thinking about what I want to do next Tuesday, but there will be something there. And I also release a video every week. And this week I'm working on part 2 of I'm answering a video by Answers in Genesis, one of their Answers News episodes called Embracing Sin. And the last week I put out a 50-minute video and I only got through 12 minutes of their video. Yeah. So this week I'm doing the other half, and I do my first foray into science, which is my weakness, with a little help from Jackson Wheat's book, The Rocks Were There. But
Yep.
it's a big part of it is on, this one is also on homosexuality. And I do a lot of talking on homosexuality in that one as well. And that one will be released. I've got about another hour work of editing on that one. Then I've got to release it to my patrons. So it'll probably be Saturday morning before it's ready to be released.
Faye.
I'm gonna have to say bye because my phone is like seriously, it's going
Hey,
dark.
Aaron, thank you so much
Yes,
for
thank
doing
you.
this.
Thanks
It
for
was
coming.
meeting you guys.
With you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna follow both you and subscribe and do all that stuff. But thanks for having me, and I hope you invite me back.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye-bye,
for coming
Aaron.
by.
I really like her. Like, I've
So
seen
do
her
I.
on Twitter. She's fabulous.
Yeah, I was so scared to meet her.
Aw.
But I am fucking melting in this heat. It's really warm. Well, it's really warm for me in London. I don't know how the rest of the.
I'm in Florida. I live in Satan's taint, so I can relate.
It's too late in the night for me to get started about Florida. But I am fucking melting, and it's really, really late, so I had to turn off my camera because I just keep yawning and I didn't want to look rude. But yeah, subscribe to my channel. I don't always talk about religious stuff. I tend to have a lot of fun. I tend to tell a lot of stories. I don't like focusing on everything on religion, especially in like the middle of COVID when I just want to laugh and just have a good time. I'm more inclined to talk about religion on my Twitter, so if that's more your thing, then follow me on Twitter. But as for what's coming up, I don't really have anything planned. Everything's kind of up in the air because of COVID. So, yeah.
Well, I know one thing that Faye's got planned is Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Faye will be joining me for another episode of the Apostate Alliance right here on The Rage. This week's guest is going to be Kyle Curtis. We're going to hear all about how Kyle Curtis left Christianity. I think we are going to turn this into a regular thing. Maybe once a month, we'll put a panel of women atheists together. I think this turned out fantastically. I want to thank everybody for being here. Aaron, who had to leave early, and Carrie before her had to leave, both with battery issues, which is I don't know why. I mean, I plug my stuff in every time I'm online.
Well, we've been talking for 2.5 hours. Those
yeah. No, I know.
devices have had it.
Yeah, Carrie was. I think Carrie was out and about too. So
yeah,
you can't very well keep connected to electricity if you're out and about. Thank you so much, Kitty, for joining us. Godless Granny, my co-host, Faye the Most Gracious. Thank you, Nakasuchi, for letting us do this on your channel. And just remember, be the conversation.
bye.